The Brea Tarpits, right behind me here on Wilshire Boulevard, sit next to LACMA. LACMA is a museum that's next to the old May Company department store, now the Oscars. That building is an example of streamline architecture. Streamline is an Art Deco style seen in 1930s furniture made popular by designer Kem Weber. Kem Weber was the grandfather of actor Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards starred in a movie called Miracle Mile, and the Miracle Mile is a neighborhood here in LA. We are in it, and you guessed it, it is the subject of our story location tour. If you watched my story location tour on George Reeves, you saw that Art Deco building there on the corner of Wilshire and La Brea Avenue with the blue square topper on it. When I mentioned that it served as the Daily Planet in season 1 of The Adventures of Superman, well, there's too much construction to go down there, but it is called the E. Clem Wilson Building, and it's been there since 1929. It's also considered one of the bookends to the Miracle Mile, which is a neighborhood, but it centers around this strip of Wilshire Boulevard. We are heading west, and the other bookend is at Fairfax Avenue. It's about a mile away, hence the term Miracle Mile. And I'm going to tell you all about it, but I want to do it through the eyes of a 1988 movie called Miracle Mile. And if you're like, Justin, what? I don't even know. What is this movie? Don't worry. You don't even have to have heard of it to get this tour. While there are a handful of diehard fans of the movie, I would say that a majority of people don't even know it exists. Which is such a shame because I love it. Love it. But I have a lot of personal reasons for loving it, and I'm not someone who recommends movies or TV shows, unless I really know you. We all just have such different tastes, so I have no idea if you would enjoy this movie or not. But why I chose to make this is because I'm realizing it was sort of the seed to my love of making these videos, doing this storytelling from locations, and that seed was planted over 20 years ago. I had just moved to LA, a teenager, didn't know anyone in this entire city, not one person. So I spent a lot of time watching movies as I was getting the lay of the land, and I rented Miracle Mile from Movies and More on Melrose, by the way. Oh, that used to be so fun, just browsing the aisles, picking out movies. Anyway, I chose Miracle Mile. I don't even know why. It was already a decade old, but it looked fun. So I get home and instantly fell in love. Give me a movie that takes place in LA at night, in the course of one night, with a killer score, and I am in. I don't even care what it's about. The opening shot of this is just a man playing a trombone while the nighttime lights of LA twinkle in the background. It's only a 15-second scene with a voiceover saying, "I never saw the big picture until today." Sold. I'm in. We know we're getting a good story. Well, the fact that I rented this movie from a video store a mere 5 minutes away from where the movie takes place floored this young boy from the Midwest. Here I was, in my dream city, late at night, watching a movie that takes place late at night in my dream city. Pure magic. It is everything I love about the power of filmmaking and the illusion that it creates. And while I can objectively say that this movie is dated, I mean, I can see where someone might find it silly, but I think it's brilliant. And I could see where you would too. So stick with me and see which way you fall. But either way, there's going to be so much more to this tour than just this movie. But, oh, just wait till you hear something wild that became of two certain cast members. It's really, it gives me goosebumps. It's great. So great. Just wait. Until about 1920, Wilshire Boulevard was a dirt road running through farm as well as oil fields. And if you wanted to go shopping, your best bet was to head to downtown Los Angeles. There was nothing of the sorts around these parts. Beverly Hills is nearby, so is Hollywood, but this area, it remained pretty barren and desolate as far as any pedestrian traffic was concerned, which is why a man named A.W. Ross came up with an idea. There's Mr. Ross's head. He really wanted to take the commercialism that dominated downtown LA and bring it out here. Los Angeles was rapidly growing, and shockingly, a large percentage of the residents here were buying more and more automobiles. So Ross wanted to utilize this new phenomenon and appeal to shoppers from their cars, as opposed to the shoppers on foot. And this was more than an idea. He had a grand vision and would need plenty of space. So he purchased 18 acres between La Brea and Fairfax Avenues, costing him $54,000. Naysayers, critics, they told him he was crazy and even dubbed this area Ross's Follies. But he stood strong with his vision and began construction. Now, he knew that customers would now be shopping from behind their windshields, so this meant larger, wider storefronts and bigger, bolder signage. Little downtown storefronts, they just wouldn't cut it along Wilshire Boulevard. And Ross's vision, it included something never before seen in the state of California, and some even say the United States, a true game changer. The left-hand turn lane with timed traffic lights. See, up until then, cars, they were just randomly turning left as they trotted along with the traffic, and Ross was like, no, give these people their own safer lanes to choose from. He's really responsible for the car culture of Los Angeles as we know it today. I mean, this city is so spread out. And you'll hear that as a complaint quite often, so if you're one of those critics, he's the fella to blame, but I happen to love that about LA, so for me, he's a hero. To many others as well, which you can see from this statue of him that was dedicated on March 14th, 1964. Not only did he get this statue, but he got the last laugh. This stretch of Wilshire turned into quite the hub. It had been called America's Champs-Élysées and the Fifth Avenue of the West. But it was Ross's friend who casually referred to it as his Miracle Mile, a nickname that turned into something much bigger. Even if you live in LA, you may not know exactly what the La Brea Tarpits actually are. It's one of those places I think everyone out here has heard of, even myself. I had always heard about them, but didn't quite really know what was up. Now, there is an admission fee for the museum, but the actual tar pits and the park are completely free to walk around, and I really recommend coming here if you ever get the chance. It's quite beautiful and pretty fascinating. Its history, it goes back tens of thousands of years. But in the 1800s, they sat on an area of land consisting of 4,400 acres called Rancho La Brea, a name that dates back to the Mexican-American War. There's the biggest pit behind that fence. It looks like a pond, but you know it's not because of the smell. It's pretty intense. It smells like your nose is pressed right up against a freshly paved road. That is because the pits have been oozing up natural asphalt and oil for centuries and centuries. Hence the name tar pits. But in 1860, the land was deeded to a man named Henry Hancock. He died in 1883, and the land was then developed by his surviving son, George Allan Hancock, who was only 8 years old when his father died. Little George grew up on the ranch, which turned out to have petroleum on the property, oil, and lots of it. George launched the Rancho La Brea Oil Company, and in around 1901, as they continued to dig for oil, they found large bones deep in the ground. Now, up until the late 1800s, any bones found were assumed to be remains of farm animals, livestock. But these bones, they were different. They were identified by a prominent geologist as belonging to extinct animals. Well, for the next decade, excavations were just going bonkers. Organizations from all over the world sent scientists to dig up fossils here, but in 1913, Hancock said, "No more. I only want Los Angeles, our community, to have digging rights." So he gave a 2-year exclusive period for local excavations only. Over 700,000 various types of plants and animals were found, all sorts of fossils going back, like I said, tens of thousands of years. And these excavations were incredible. They found the remains of so many species that had gotten trapped over the years: mammoths, lions, saber-toothed cats, bears. See, small animals would get trapped in the tar pits, then larger predators would go after them, and in return, they would get stuck. It was a whole hot, sticky mess. And here is Mr. Hancock himself. His statue is rusting, and they really should fix it because it looks like he is bleeding from a punch to the nose. While he has this statue here honoring him for all that he did with this land, I feel like his name is more identifiable in LA for the affluent neighborhood that bears his name, Hancock Park. Now, this is all technically part of Hancock Park, but a little further east is a massive neighborhood of old, giant, stately mansions that is all part of Hancock Park, and I think that's the part that people are most familiar with. Hancock, though, he also donated millions of dollars to USC, and in Santa Maria, California, where he died in 1956 at the age of 89, there is an airport named for him, as well as the Allan Hancock College. He was a very generous man who loved LA and wanted to share this area with its residents, and thanks to him, we can do just that today. Hancock certainly preserved the land, but George C. Page took it to a whole other level, and we are on top of the museum that bears his name. I say on top because it's actually built into this hill. The museum is right below us. It's quite a unique and very intricate structure. Sally Field shot a movie up here. Actually, a bunch of things were filmed here, but I'll show you all of that in a bit. Back to Mr. Page. He was quite the philanthropist around town. He was a pivotal benefactor of the LA Children's Hospital, as well as Pepperdine University out in Malibu. He died in the year 2000, just a few months shy of his 100th birthday. But back in 1917, when he was just a teenager, he visited the tar pits, just fascinated by all of the discoveries, but he was disappointed that the remains, the bones, were not here on site. Instead, they were all on display over at the Natural History Museum. And real quick, those buildings over there, they're all part of Park La Brea, an area we're gonna cover on this tour, but I just wanted you to see just how close it is to the pits here. Anyway, when teenaged Mr. Page first came to California from Nebraska, he tasted a delicious California orange, and his life would be forever changed. He worked as a soda jerk, and once he earned $1,000, he bought a small building and began an orange shipping business where people could send boxes of oranges to their families and friends living in other parts of the country so that they too could taste these magnificent California-grown gems. Well, this business flourished, and Page, he went on to have quite an illustrious career in Los Angeles, but he just never got over the fact that the remnants of the tar pits weren't at the tar pits. So in 1975, he financed the building of this museum to rectify this issue, and he had everything sent over here so that it could all properly be displayed in the setting from where it came. 2 years later, in 1977, the George C. Page Museum and Park, as we know it today, officially opened, and just over a decade later, it would be the setting for the very first scene in Miracle Mile. So we get our first good look at the film's leading man, Harry Washello. He's watching a history video here about how long man has been around, and in his voiceover, he complains about still not having found the perfect girl in his 30-year experience. Enter Julie Peters with certainly a love it or hate it haircut. And this is great. When I first came in here, I really did not think we would see anything that we saw in the movie, but wow, was I wrong. This wall, it has not changed, and it's where we see Julie and Harry, kind of notice each other for the first time, and directly across from it hasn't changed a single bit either. It's really great. And we see more of Harry and Julie. They begin this little game of cat and mouse, both showing interest in one another. I don't know, if you've seen my videos, I just love when things look the exact same as they do in the movies, especially one that is 35 years old. The roaring in here, so good. All right, like I said, we're on an active site, so there's actually an active lab here where you can totally watch scientists work, or their actors from Central Casting completely fooling all of us. Is that Mare Winningham in there? No, she works all the time, actually. She's thriving. She's on Dope Sick right now, that Hulu miniseries. Anyway, this mural over here, it's so great. It's like stepping back in time. It feels so 80s. Well, thousands of years ago, really. Fun tip, if you're an LA resident, you can come here for free on weekdays between 3 and 5 o'clock. Pop an edible if you're into that kind of thing, and put on some music and get completely lost in the past. Maybe listen to some Tangerine Dream. For those of you not familiar with them, they are an electronic band from Germany. I mean, they date back to the late 60s, but they're still touring and making music. I think they just had their biggest tour ever, actually. They're truly pioneers in the world of electronic music. The TV show Stranger Things, they use all music inspired by them. Really, their sound is an integral part of 80s cinema, and you guessed it, they did all of the music for Miracle Mile. But probably their best known movie work is what they did for Risky Business. A bunch of other movies too. Vision Quest, Firestarter, so many. These sounds, I cannot get over these roaring sounds. They also did like a huge score, something like 3 hours of music for one of those Grand Theft Auto video games. Really a hugely successful group, and their music in Miracle Mile is like an additional character. It is so great. I mean, even the gift shop looks the exact same. And it's the last stop in the montage. Julie and Harry, they never even say hi to each other in the museum. They just stalk each other, and he teases some kids on a field trip, and she just kind of watches him, but they never even say hi. He goes up to buy a souvenir, and she just pieces out. So Harry leaves the museum and comes out here and stands on what used to be some sort of terrace on top of a small building, maybe the bathrooms, I'm not really sure, but whatever it was, it's been torn down, and he's all bummed, thinking that he finally laid eyes on the perfect girl and let her get away. A girl he never even exchanged a single word with, but she's perfect, and he lost her.
I felt so bad I could have jumped into the tar pits.
So he's all smoking and playing with his souvenir from the gift shop, and she's like, nope, you didn't lose me, I'm right here. Which, I don't know how he missed her, it's not that big here, but, maybe these were the bathrooms, maybe she was in the bathroom, but no, she spotted him and went after him, so, I don't know. If anyone watching knows what this building used to be, let me know, because I really do want to know. It's also featured in a bunch of movies and TV shows. But anyway, it's out here where our two leads finally speak to one another and introduce themselves to each other. Harry, of course, is played by Anthony Edwards, who was born on July 19th, 1962, not too far away from here in Santa Barbara. And like I said, his grandpa on his mom's side was Kem Weber, not just a prolific designer, but also an architect. His style, again, was streamlined, and he created really some remarkably famous looks for 1930s furniture. But not only that, he's the main architect of the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank. Anthony's parents, they were both in the world of design and architecture as well, but Anthony branched out. He chased the acting bug. He studied here in SoCal at USC, and also abroad at the prestigious Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts over in England. He spent the early 80s appearing in some TV movies and even appeared as a stoner alongside Sean Penn and Eric Stoltz in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. In 1984, he was cast in his first leading film role when he played Gilbert in Revenge of the Nerds, which just became a huge phenomenon of the 1980s. The following year, Anthony starred alongside John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga in Rob Reiner's The Sure Thing. But it was 1986 when he would be thrust into just the absolute heights of film success when he appeared alongside Tom Cruise in Top Gun. No big deal, just one of the most successful films of all time. His follow-up films after Top Gun are sort of interesting choices. He did a movie called Summer Heat with Laurie Singer from Footloose and Kathy Bates. Then he did a sequel to Revenge of the Nerds, followed by Mr. North, a movie he starred in with just a stellar cast, including Lauren Bacall, Robert Mitchum, Angelica Houston, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Virginia Madsen. He was definitely drawn to peculiar projects because he then did a movie called Hawks, written by, this is so crazy, Barry Gibb. Yes, Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. And no, it wasn't a movie about the world of disco. It was about two terminally ill patients living out their last days, Anthony being one of them, and Timothy Dalton, James Bond, being the other patient. Then came Miracle Mile. In fact, it was Anthony signing on to do this film that helped get it made. Julie is played by the brilliant Academy Award-nominated actress Mare Winningham. Born in Phoenix on May 16, 1959, Mary Megan Winningham ended up moving out to LA when her father became the football coach at Cal State Northridge. Mare attended Chatsworth High School, and her high school boyfriend was Val Kilmer, who, of course, would grow up to star alongside Anthony Edwards in Top Gun. And not only that, but Mare was co-valedictorian at graduation, and she shared that title with Kevin Spacey. How insane. Kevin and Mare, they also both starred in their senior year production of The Sound of Music. Kevin was Captain Von Trapp, and she was Maria. Where is that video? But during her senior year, Mare was on The Gong Show, singing a Beatles song. She didn't get the gong, but her music career didn't take off either. However, she did score an agent and began getting small parts on television shows like Policewoman, Family, and Starsky and Hutch. She also appeared on a short-lived series called The Young Pioneers. By the way, I said short-lived in another one of my videos and got a couple comments, a couple rude ones, telling me that I pronounced it wrong. No, it's actually pronounced short-lived. You can say short-lived. People have been saying short-lived for so long now that it's considered correct, but it's not the original pronunciation. But I bring up the show because Mare met her first husband on it, actor A. Martinez, who I know from the soap opera Santa Barbara, and of course as Meryl Streep's Garcia in She-Devil. Oh, I love that there's a helicopter right now. You'll understand why as you keep watching this, or if you're a fan of the movie, you already know why. But anyway, Mare and A's marriage, it only lasted a few months. I guess you could say it was short-lived. Anyway, Mare's career, it started getting better. She was getting larger roles and made-for-TV movies, one of which earned her a Best Supporting Actress Emmy Award, 1980's Amber Waves, co-starring Kurt Russell. But shortly after her divorce, she remarried to an actor-director named William Maple and had 5 children with him. One in 1981, one in 83, 85, 87, and the last one in 1988. She also did a bunch more television movies. She played Helen Keller. She was in The Thornbirds with Barbara Stanwyck. But in 1985, Mare's fame absolutely skyrocketed when she and her fellow St. Elmo's Fire co-stars were dubbed the Brat Pack. And ironically, in that movie, Mare played a virgin. Very well, though. But I feel like whereas that label sort of limited some of the other Brat Packers, Mare escaped any baggage that may have come with that label. I don't know, it just didn't seem to follow her the same way it followed the others. And she did make a few movies directly after St. Elmo's Fire, but none as big as they should have been. Although Shy People is a forgotten gem. It starred Barbara Hershey and Jill Clayburgh, as well as Mare and Martha Plimpton, who I absolutely love. Oh, and Tangerine Dream. They did the score for that movie. But anyway, Mare, she closed out the 1980s by starring in Miracle Mile, and then Turner and Hooch, opposite Tom Hanks, the following year in 1989.
So this is the tar pits?
After hitting it off at the tar pits, Harry and Julie, they go off on this. It's literally a 1-minute scene, mostly a montage at the beach in Santa Monica. It's really the only time in the entire movie that the story strays from the Miracle Mile. And like I said, it's quick. It's just shots of them falling for each other. But then they end up back here in the same neighborhood as the tar pits at the Pan Pacific Park. Harry and his trombone are in some sort of band that's playing for an audience of about 10. I think the band has more people in it. It's some sort of effort to save the Pan Pacific Auditorium. And Julie, she likes Harry enough to have invited her grandpa along, which I think is so sweet. And also, I'm totally making this up because we never hear Grandpa speak in this scene. Really, we learn very little about him through the whole movie, but I feel like maybe his character, probably even the actor, has a great history with the legendary auditorium, which, of course, I will tell you all about. But I want to point out one of the extras in the band, Peter Berg. He has this quick interaction with Harry, like a playful competitive rivalry thing. It's the only time we see him. Blink and you miss him. Peter was actually Anthony Edwards' stand-in, but the director bumped him up to this little bit role, and it earned Peter his Screen Actors Guild card. And I love pointing it out because in the early 90s, just a few years after they filmed this scene, the two actors would both be starring on rival medical dramas. Anthony Edwards, of course, on NBC's must-see TV juggernaut, ER, and Peter Berg on CBS's not that, but still a fantastic show, Chicago Hope, which had a terrific cast. Anyway, this man, he went from actor to hugely successful director and writer. He wrote and directed Friday Night Lights, the movie with Billy Bob Thornton, but he also directed a few episodes of the TV series, and he has directed way too many big budget action movies for me to even name. So I will just leave you with my favorite thing that he was in, 1994's The Last Seduction, starring Linda Fiorentino and Bill, not Paxton, Bill, come on, from Independence Day, Bill Pullman. It's a great 90s thriller, film noir, that only the 90s could do in that special, perfect 90s way. Anyway, the point is, be very kind to your stand-ins and your extras because they could very well grow up to own you one day. You only see the actual auditorium for a couple of seconds from this little outdoor amphitheater, and I'd love to tell you that it's still there in all of its glory behind the trees that have since been planted, but that's not the case. It's gone. I hope Harry and Peter Berg didn't spend the money that their band raised that day, because on May 24th, 1989, just 5 days after Miracle Mile opened in the United States, the Pan Pacific Auditorium burned to the ground in a horrific fire. I mean, Miracle Mile must be among the last pieces of film footage of the auditorium. But around the time of filming, and really all throughout the 1980s, the auditorium was in a state of decay, and there were multiple efforts to save and restore it, so the plot point in the movie actually makes sense. But before it became dilapidated, the auditorium was stuff of legend. It opened on May 18th, 1935, and was a perfect example of streamline architecture. Ironically, as I mentioned earlier, Anthony Edwards' grandpa's furniture was of the streamline genre. But this place, it was a 100,000 square foot masterpiece and was a go-to venue for dances, concerts, speeches, rallies, you name it. Here's a closer view of where it once stood up on that hill. It was huge, really massive. It could hold up to 6,000 people. President Dwight D. Eisenhower spoke here months before getting elected, and Elvis Presley gave a concert of about 19 songs here in 1957 before he took off for the Army. It hosted the Ice Capades, the Harlem Globetrotters, and a bunch of sporting events, too many to mention. But this place hosted so many events over the decades. But in 1972, the auditorium closed its doors for good as the newly opened and much larger Los Angeles Convention Center opened downtown. And the Pan Pacific Auditorium sat here abandoned and began its state of decay. In 2002, a new recreation center was built here in the park with a much smaller replica of the old auditorium, honoring the architectural style of the former landmark, which, by the way, you can see the former landmark in 1980's Xanadu, starring Olivia Newton-John and Gene Kelly, both of whom appear in scenes right out in front of it, but only the exterior of the abandoned building was used in the movie. The interiors were filmed on a soundstage. And, you know, Grease, it was such a huge movie that expectations for another musical starring Olivia were just massive. Everyone associated with the auditorium, they were hoping that the huge box office would translate into a resurgence of interest in the auditorium, but that didn't happen. The movie was a financial bomb. I mean, today it's considered a cult classic, but after the movie opened, the auditorium continued to sit empty, usually only being used for film shoots and music videos, until the fire destroyed it for good. You can certainly see the entire park from the top floor of the Grove Shopping Mall's parking garage. And you can see just how close the Park La Brea apartment complex is. We were on the exact opposite side when I mentioned it at the Tar Pits earlier. Julie lives in one of those high-rise tower apartments. We'll see it later, but I love this because while I love the magic of movie editing, I also love that the locations in this movie, for the most part, are all within walking distance. In my story location tour on Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you can see how it takes several neighborhoods between Southern California and Northern Illinois, two different states, to make Ferris's neighborhood feel like it's one big city. In Miracle Mile, though, it's all laid out like the movie implies. Two great films just showcasing two polar opposite techniques in using film locations. And now we are in Park La Brea. We were just over there on top of that enormous white parking structure there in the center. Now, Park La Brea, it's not really a park. It's considered one of, if not the largest apartment complex in all of the United States, definitely the largest west of the Mississippi. It takes up 160 acres and has over 4,200 units. It's basically a small town. There are 10,000 tenants. There are also 18 towers, each having 13 stories, as well as over 30 smaller residential buildings scattered around the property, like the ones that you see ground level below us. And this was all part of the Rancho La Brea land that George Allan Hancock acquired. In addition to the tar pit land that he had donated this land as well to the University of Southern California. However, in 1940, USC sold it to an insurance company out of New York who bought the land with intent on building a self-contained property with diagonal streets and uniquely shaped buildings to create a garden-like atmosphere. And construction, it began in 1941. Phase 1 had concluded by 1944. And when it opened, tenants were paying anywhere from $50 to $100 a month in rent. Phase 2 began in 1948, and this included the tall towers. Now, all of this, it was in part really an answer to housing the men and women who were returning from war. That's really who a majority of the tenants first were. And phase 2 was completed, and the high-rises were finished, and they were built in an X form, assuring that each window would have a view. And by 1951, tenants began moving in. But Park La Brea got some much-needed love in 2010 with an $8 million renovation. New paint, new colors, a nice new water fountain, the lobbies were redone. It really elevated the place, and as you can see today, it is really quite beautiful. However, you can see in Miracle Mile when Harry, Julie, and Grandpa leave the Pan Pacific Park to go home that back then, Park La Brea, it just lacked character. It's pretty depressing and void of the greenery that it luckily has today.
She's a very hip girl, but a little old-fashioned. The way she brought her grandfather Ivan to see me play. Like that trolley we toured the Miracle Mile in. It's just a little out of time. I think it's time for a change. Maybe I should stop trying to be the king of the Glenn Miller impersonators. Take a teaching gig around here at some junior high. See if there's a vacancy in Julie's building.
A lot of yuppies moving into Park La Brea these days. I've been here 35 years.
What a bummer that the Miracle Mile trolley doesn't exist anymore. There totally should still be one. There's a lot to do in the Miracle Mile, and a lot of people live around here, including Julie and Grandpa, who Harry escorts home. There's that new fountain I mentioned that was not here when Julie and Harry are walking around. He tells her he has to leave town. Doesn't say why. Maybe for another gig in the park. I don't know. But they are about to make plans for their last night together when suddenly Julie's grandma pops out. She's all excited to meet Julie's new friend. And she doesn't just pop out either. She practically dances as if Julie's never brought a handsome man home. But Julie doesn't want any of it because it turns out Grandma and Grandpa have been estranged for like 15 years. Haven't spoken a word since. But Grandma didn't move far. She still lives in Park La Brea, just in a different building, but with Julie. And all of this, it upsets Julie. She clearly loves both of her grandparents, and she tells Harry that she doesn't even remember what that petty fight was all about, but Harry, he sees this vulnerable, heartbroken side of Julie, and he falls for her even more. Grandpa was played by John Agar. He was an actor known for his work in westerns. He did some movies alongside John Wayne and also starred in a bunch of sci-fi B-movies, some of which have attained cult classic status. Probably, though, his biggest claim to fame was becoming the first husband of child legendary superstar Shirley Temple, whom he wed in 1945 and had a daughter with 3 years later. Their marriage had only lasted 5 years, and Shirley filed for divorce, and John had very little contact with her or their daughter once it was all said and done. Apparently, the demise of their marriage was brought on from his intense alcoholism, which landed him in and out of jail over the years for reckless driving, drunk driving, but he totally rebounded. And he married a model in 1951, and they remained together until she passed away in 2000. Agar, he died 2 years later on April 7th, 2002. And I'll always mention it whenever I can, Charlie's Angels. So it's worth noting that he played a colonel in a season 1 episode of the brilliant, brilliant series. And Julie's grandma is played by Lou Hancock. And I love this woman's story. She was born February 25th, 1925, in Fort Worth, Texas. She was a painter as well as an actress who did theater, and she even booked a small part on Broadway. She joined the USO in World War II and went all over the globe. She eventually settled down in Texas and had 7 children, but she didn't give up her dream. She continued acting in plays in Fort Worth, and she even co-founded the Hip Pocket Theater, which is still going strong today. However, it wasn't until her late 50s that she decided, you know what, I'm moving to LA. I'm going to pursue my dreams, and she did. She landed small roles on film and TV. She did an episode of Dallas and one of Falcon Crest, and she did a small thing in Places in the Heart, the movie Sally Field won her 2nd Oscar for. But Lou's most memorable role came to her in the form of horror. She played Henrietta in Evil Dead 2, which was the year before Miracle Mile. And she went on to do many more one-episode roles on shows like Newhart, Dynasty, 30-something, Doogie Howser. She was on Roseanne. She even did an episode of Melrose Place. And she played the nurse in The Grifters and The Fisher King. Miraculously, though, at the age of 65, she went back to college and earned a master's degree in theater. She taught method acting for a while and passed away in Burbank at the age of 71 on December 1st, 1995. Harry has gotten to know Julie, he's met her grandparents a little bit, he's gotten all the deets on the family drama, but we know very little about Harry. Like, where he lives. It's never clear. He never mentions it. Just says that he has to leave town and that it's his last night here. And Julie, she's all bummed because she has to go to work, but only till midnight. And when she suggests that she'd be down to go dancing after work, Harry totally jumps on it. He is all into that. Now, the trees here, they're really beautiful, but I have to get past them here to show you a tall building peering out down there, the tall white one down there on Wilshire. You've probably noticed it a few times so far along the tour, and you can see it between Julie and Harry while they're talking. It's kind of a foreshadowing of where they're eventually heading.